Yossi Mekelberg, who joins us now from London. Yossi is an associate fellow at the Chatham House think tank. Yossi, welcome to the program. Mike Pompeo, the former US Secretary of State, has said that it's a big mistake that Joe Biden has called Saudi Arabia a pariah state. He did it in the run-up to the election against Donald Trump. But the issue surely here is Iran, because in both Israel and Saudi Arabia, he's got two countries that are very, very, very much opposed to Iran.
Yes, good morning. You see, after all, candidates during the election campaign say a lot of things. But then when you become the leader of the United States and a major power, superpower, then you have to deal with realities. And the reality is there are commonality of interest between the United States and Saudi Arabia. And, you know, there is a place for frank and honest discussion about a range of issues between the countries. But the reality is that, especially following the war in Ukraine and Russian aggression, there is a huge crisis in the energy market. And part of this this visit is about increasing production, ensuring the prices don't go up, actually going down. And of course, the issue of Iran, which is always in the background, the return to the JCPOA or not returning to that, so what to do with Iran on the nuclear issues and other issues. So this is the reality when you're in the White House, in difference from campaigning.
Do you think right now is the perfect time for an American president to be pushing Saudi Arabia, with its de facto leader not being the king, but the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, to come more on board with the Abraham Accords? Not necessarily sign up to it anytime soon, but to make some kind of gestures towards Israel in terms of maybe airspace opening, those kind of actions?
Well, I think that at the end of the day, again, it's the common interest of Israel and also Saudi Arabia and the rest of the Gulf countries in such cooperation, as long as they define their interest as containing Iran, whether it's the nuclear program or other adventurism by Tehran in Lebanon, in Syria, in Palestine. So there is commonality, again, of interest. Now, what's good time? I don't think there is ever a good time in the Middle East. There is always something that it doesn't go in the way that anyone else might want. It's the timing, again, with an interim government in Israel, it's not ideal. What leadership it needs to conduct is conversation. It's not dictated and shouldn't be dictated by the United States. So the pressing issues are there and need to deal with those who make decisions in any of the countries. I think the important issue with, you know, both and everyone tried to avoid, of course, is the Palestinian issue. And I think I would have loved to see a more bold approach when it comes to the end of the occupation, having some initiative to alleviating the daily lives, the suffering of the daily life of Palestinians. And I'm afraid it will be more symbolism than any concrete steps.
That's interesting. Don't you think that the Biden administration could actually take some concrete steps directly to help the Palestinians? However much he might fail to convince the Israeli politicians and leaders to accept a two-state solution, nobody expects them to agree to that anytime soon. But can the US not directly help the Palestinians now that they have a president who actually does support their cause, compared to Donald Trump, who didn't care about them at all?
Again, this goes back to the question of timing. Maybe midterm elections and election in Israel are not the best time to put pressure on Israel. But I would argue the opposite, because a lot of these steps, the concrete steps, can actually serve the Israeli interest. Having more Palestinians allowed to work in Israel is in Palestinians and Israeli interest. Having, you know, upgrading the internet system to G4, I think it's interest for both. So there are actually many concrete steps that are stopping, for instance, Jewish terrorism, increasing security cooperation between the two. Those are steps that the American administration can advance during this visit, which serves everyone. And maybe as a step towards eventually to a peace initiative that, as you say, it doesn't seem to be feasible at the moment, but at least these steps that can help to do that. Even this, I can't see President Biden actually put, I don't know, to even pressure, but make a point that the United States sees is crucial also for its own interests.
Yossi, it's always a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you so much. Yossi Mekelberg from Chatham House.